I think, now that I understand that you're an artist as well, it was like seeing painting after painting, you know, just great descriptions. Beautiful.
Oh, it's really happening.
That's really great. A baby in army fatigues, that's pretty funny.
And he did get a bloody nose.
And he did get So Peg Goldman is our next reader. And this I'm reading exactly as she wrote. I once wrote a story about an intergalactic traveler named Pakuna, and so have taken that name as my poet name. I oftentimes attend the Otter Creek Poet Meetings Thursday afternoons, where I'm inspired to continue writing poetry. Tonight I would like to share my most recent poem written 8 days ago at the Patricia Hannaford Career Center, where I substitute teach in Middlebury, Vermont. Let's welcome Pakuna.
So the title of the poem is What to Do with the Outliers. What to do with the outliers, the data that defy, the numbers that refute, and lead the researchers to design another study, tweak something someplace to prove the theorem into law, rid the data of outliers. Yet you and I know the dynamism of equilibrium, the constancy of change. Forget the studies, embrace the outliers. They may soon be the norm. Thank you.
I don't know, maybe you're a seer as well. We'll see. Next poet is Sophia Hughes, and she is a visual artist, again another, that's interesting, and psychotherapist. She has been intermittently writing poetry since 2012. So let's welcome Sophia.
So, this is also my first poetry reading. Let's see. This one's very short. Withered. I did. I saw her form crumple when you said that. A billowed cloak blown westward, out the door, lilting over the trees, becoming ever smaller. Red heart beating, brows kneading, hair ashing, wind easing. This one is called Trough. Doubt circled by, but let me go. This time, went on to rattle someone else's window, while I, shaken, held my gaze ahead, tough tripped a bit, and soldiered on. So then I have a couple, okay. And then I have a couple about being an artist. Down the Bowery to Houston Street, ducking into rows of junk hardware stores, looking for parts and tools for found constructions, ready with vocabulary to combat sneers at a young woman in such a place, elated at what I found, a way to construct a feeling. Okay. This is called Revisiting Sculpture Years through Camille Claudel. The roughness, visual sensuality, the resonance with, but celebration of femininity, sloping convergences of softness, transition over muscle, substructure, masculinity contrasted, convex, concave, slid line of vision, countenance revelation, a vision stolen, betrayal, space between stance, space holding space, modeled movement, gesture enstoned, endured. Okay. And this one it's called On My Back in Silver Lake. The other Silver Lake, not the one nearby. Tipping my head farther back than usual, the forward, upward view makes me a single eye, rimmed with a watery ring, perfectly encircling the droplet clarity of sky. Sky is layered, clouds visible, moving subtly in opposing directions at varied altitudes. Soft edged shades of blue-white, aqua, violet, and cerulean vary the span. Payne's gray darkens one side of the hemisphere, while articulating stark delicacy in crisp, rounded, brilliant white form. I don't hear the thunder. My ears are underwater as I see the trees in the uppermost region of my forehead, towards where we seek the third eye. Their branched forms, from this perspective, are luxuriant lashes. My own eyes search to understand this new framing. I feel the muscle contractions of seriousness I have seen before only in and around the eyes of a newborn, straining to make first sense of light, shadow, sound, and quantum entanglement. And the last one is called Fireflies, and it's short. At night, this darkness goes on forever, in the quietest of gloom and softest of gleams, tentative in this vast place and time. Alone, together, we sketch a branching schema. Now I am struck, ecstatic. Now I am lost, bereft. You too, all of us, fireflies on the great lawn beside the passing broad river.
What beautifully tender and sensitive poems. Thank you very, very much. So our last reader is David Weinstock himself. And it gives me enormous pleasure to have you here. So David lives, writes, and teaches in Middlebury, where he leads the long-running Otter Creek Poets Open Workshop. He has studied with Richard Wilbur, Yves Bonnefoy, Harold Bond, Alan Shapiro, and Ed Hirsch. His poems have appeared in Moment, Riding the Meridian, Modern Haiku, the Journal of American Medical Association, Lyric, and Monterey Poetry Review, and in a book-length collection, The Amalek Poems, which I can tell you is an extraordinary book. Okay, welcome, David.
Thanks, Steve. And thanks for all being here tonight. We need our audience. We need our poets, but we need our audiences too. Where do artists get their ideas? Where do poets get their ideas? A lot of poets depend on the muse. The muse is kind of I don't want a fairy godmother, or a tooth fairy, really, who comes to you with an idea. The muse doesn't come to my house, so I have to make my own fun. And one of the things I do is I just look at stuff and I let it make a poem for me. And this poem comes from the Manhattan phone book. The story you need to know is that you know how all the Jewish people have names like Silverberg or Goldstein or Copper. That sort of, there are all these names for like metals and jewelry and diamonds and those are called ornamental names. And we got them because at the end of the 18th century, the countries that Jews lived in were annoyed that we didn't have last names. Like you'd be like David, son of Marvin. And it was hard to keep track of people and to tax them and to draft them. And so they said you have to pick names. And a lot of people picked what we called ornamental names. And this poem called The Names We Took, the first two names that I mentioned are American Indian names, and the rest are Jewish names that I've translated back into English. The names we took: Slow Turtle, Sitting Bull, I envy you no more. These are the names that we took. Garden of Trees, Almond Leaf, Shooting Star, Grape Leaf, Grapevine, Grape Blossom, he who prunes vines and he who sells wine, a river of wine, wine glass, goblet, white cloth, grain grinder, bread, the guest to whom wine is served, a gift of wine, a field of corn, shining corn, white bread, son of the earth, petals of stone, little flower, big mountain. Silver nail, silver ingot, and gold, always gold, a flood of gold, a brook of gold, he who fishes for gold, a grove of gold, a room full of it, its shine, its joy, its clang, its grumble. Another thing that seems to get me going is when I find a list of rules, and I can write poems that break them all. And one of the list of rules is the list of things you must not do on the Sabbath. There's 39 things, and I picked up, these are sorting, cooking, and reaping grain. So each poem is a sorting. So brainy. Read a lot of books. Any sports? Didn't think so. You take a mild interest in nearly everything? Ravenclaw. Okay. Stuff my cookbook says. Sift the flour, skim the stock, check for stones in the beans. Keeping women busy is all a cookbook wants. Life is short. Cook like a man. And this is called advice. I was cutting weeds with a sickle, swinging in great graceful arcs, which the weeds all seemed to ignore. My father came over to say, "It's nothing so dramatic as that. It's like this." He grasped the weed tops and tapped the blade against their stalks. Years later, I still stand up for drama. Maybe that sickle needed sharpening, or weeds are not enough like wheat. A curved blade swung in great arcs ought to be all that you need. Another thing that I often do is what I call an occasional poem. An occasional poem, like if you're the poet laureate of England, you have very few actual responsibilities, but one is like to write a poem for the Queen's birthday or the Prince's wedding or whatever. Occasional poems for a particular time or place. So when we were in, Middlebury College sent us to Monterey, California for a couple years, and this is a poem composed for reading at Bay Books, a bookstore in Monterey, on March 28th, 2006. And it was very much, it's a poem for people sitting in a bookstore listening to a poetry reading. So this is made for you. It's a little long. I was thinking how Bach would be asked to compose music to be played on a particular day to fill a given time slot, and it would have to be something to do with that day. A royal birthday, a requiem mass, a saint's feast day, a cantata. A cantata is a piece for voices with a narrative, with stories. I was thinking I would write a poem just for today. Where to start? Where to start? Today in history, March 28th, is the birthday of the Italian artist Fra Bartolomeo, and the Queen of France, Mary Tudor, is the birthday of Santa Teresa de Avila. My father told me I should write a book about our next-door neighbor and compare her to Santa Teresa. The Prince of Bayreuth, Albert the Warlike, the Russian author Maxim Gorky, the Austrian pianist Rudolf Serkin, Edmund Muskie, the senator from Maine who ran for president but lost because he cried in public, Mario Vargas Llosa, a Peruvian writer who ran for president but lost Nothing to do with weeping. Cantata, cantata, what rhymes with cantata? Regatta, dentata, terracotta. Mohammed Atta is persona non grata. Show me something mas barata. I don't got a lot of plata, Zapata. They tell me I have 20 minutes. I have 20 minutes, you have 20 minutes, and here I have a poem that will take 20 minutes, including timeouts for a sip of water, and more time while you laugh at the funny parts. And I wait for you to stop laughing and look around at each other and say, this is funny, is it really poetry? It should last 20 minutes unless because I am shy and nearly naked here before you, I get to talking so nervously fast that I finish too soon, that even with you laughing in the right places, I will only manage 13 minutes or 15, and then you'll be out of here early, back out on Alvarado Street to shop in the settling dark. I recommend the fried calamari with artichoke hearts to eat with a white plastic fork as you stroll. I recommend 2 quarts of strawberries. I recommend an armload of cut flowers. I recommend, like a waiter reciting the specials. But actually, I can only recommend what all poets recommend. I recommend that you love me. That is all any poet is saying. Love me up one side and down the other. Love me long and deep and wide. Love me, love me, love me. That's poetry. Dearly beloved, it is Tuesday evening and we are gathered in a bookstore, one of the last sacred places we have. And you are seated on folding chairs, equally sacred, vital accessories to all of our most earnest endeavors. Prayer meetings, therapy groups, 12-step programs, school plays. A folding chair is prayer rug and pew, kneeler and rosary and lotus throne. It is the sweet chariot of democracy. On it you are the king of equality, the queen of civil improvement, a cardinal of the College of America. You are sitting pretty. Even when we are done rising up together from this stowaway communion and the chairs are put away, the chairs will retain for a few minutes, perhaps even a half hour, the warmth of your bottom in the fiber of its upholstery and the secret bubble caverns of its foam, and will remember how you sat upon it and what blessed things you thought and wanted and wished for. The chair remembers. The air remembers. You cannot go anywhere without leaving some trace. And I'm not talking about the constant raining down of epithelial cells, the telling dribble of DNA in spittle and hair loss and sneeze, as if this were CSI Monterey. I'm not talking about your paper trail or all the things you posted on the internet that anybody could find and hold hard against you now. What you leave here is a tracery of good intentions, of our wanting to sit together, to be something better than television that lifts us up and out and away. That is why we are here in a bookstore, here in this town by the bay that opens onto the Pacific. We gather by the Pacific in folding chairs, and there is nowhere we should rather be. I should have said before I started that to understand this poem, you need to know the word akathisia and the word catalectic. You need to know the word auriferous and the word farinaceous. You should also know the word alembic and the words gleep and liripip. To understand this poem, you will need 3 years of high school Spanish, 2 semesters of college calculus, and an evening adult education course in woodworking. Adult education is a good way to meet other young single people like yourself. People you might enjoy and date and fall in love with, and get married and have children and raise the children and grow old together, older and older, and eventually one of you will die. One dies before the other dies, and that will be the loneliest time of your life. You won't know what to do. You won't know what to do. At first, you won't go out much, but later, you should consider adult education. To understand this poem, you will need a few more words not even invented yet. Words are invented by poets. Dante Gabriel Rossetti invented yesteryear, and Walt Whitman, did you know, he invented the word sunrise. Until that moment in 1867, people were tongue-tied every morning. Look, over there in the east, what's happening there? Until he supplied the word, the perfectly apposite word, and then we all wondered, how did we get through a day without it? Yes, poets invent words. It's how we make our money. You didn't think we sold poems for a living. No, we make up words. You'll get $2,000 for a dozen new words. Even more if they are computer related. And once in a while you invent a words or a two-word phrase so useful that you never have to work again. I personally came up with "no way." And the royalties from that alone would pay the rent, except that I donated them to hurricane relief in New Orleans. We are inside surrounded by books and non-books, by bookworms and non-bookworms. Outside, the tide is halfway between high tide and low tide. The sun will set at 6:26. The sea lions bark like tied-up dogs on a country road when a stranger drives by. Outside, the western gulls are circling like hawks, perhaps pretending to be hawks, pretending that sand crabs are really field mice. Even seagulls aspire to be something else. If they could, they would be here on the folding chairs, listening for God. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
What a great note to end on and be inspired by. I mean, I always love your pithy humor, and we don't get to hear you enough. That's the
Okay.
problem. That's my only complaint about the
Okay.
workshop.
I'll try.
We don't get to hear you enough.
I'll try.
That was absolutely fabulous. So I'd like to ask, before we break up, that all the Otter Creek poets come up. I want a group portrait together with everyone who's read. You don't want to be it? All right, fine. So David, stay here, don't go. Yes, but I don't know, Pakuna, you don't want to be in it? No, I won't take it. No, I know, I'm going to take it. Look, I'm going to take it. So let's come up here. Poets, come up. So listen, I just want to thank all of you again for coming. It was a really spectacular reading. We should give ourselves a hand. We did a great job. What did you say?
A large part of the audience.
Okay, so
Yeah, look at our audience.
Carol, do you want to come up? You're,
Okay, Carol.
well, you're part of the group. Come on up. Come on up. You're, come on, Janet. Yes, come, wait, we need, come on, come up. Yeah. Are we all in here? Squeeze in, let's, we might have to have front and back.
No, do sideways.
Sideways. How's that? Is that good? Okay,
Now we need a
good.
football here.
Hey.
And one more. All right, don't move.
So, to poetry.
All right, one more. Awesome.
So here's to poetry. What a great celebration. Thank you all. All right? Do it more often. Thank you. Really? That's good.
You were a great MC. You were
This was great.
Thank you so much. That was
Debut, we've got 2 books being published and a debut poet. Isn't that great?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I did see some of your work online. I'd like to see more.
Well, the website has a lot. But anyway, it was great.
Thank you for bringing it.
Everyone will have a DVD. Is that cool? No, it's not just me. The bookstore is very Talk with Arlen. Talk with Fun, thank you.
There was no selling tonight, so it's possible to do that. But you might want to send me this stuff. Somebody's asked if it could be on local ads. There was no selling tonight, so it could be done.
You said you
Great little poem, and outliers end up like I was my degree in geology, so I knew something about it.